Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to resolve that perfect versus imperfect authentic cadence. So the first thing to remember is your perfect authentic cadence, the one chord, the chord that the dominant resolves to. It needs to have scale degree 1 in the soprano, and we need to have 5/1 root motion in the bass. So let's go ahead and do this in the key of C, and then in future videos we may do this in other keys as well. So again, I'm just going to put a C underneath the clef to indicate the actual key. I'm going to write 5 going to 1. The first one that I'm going to do is a perfect authentic cadence, and it's actually very simple how you do this. The second one that I'm going to do is an imperfect authentic cadence, also going from 5 to 1. We could invert this if we want to. It doesn't change a whole lot. The voicings are still going to be the same. We're just going to put them in different voices. So if you want to create like a little scratch sheet over here, you can write your 5 chord and your 1 chord. You can write out the entire chord, G, B, and D. We're going to go ahead and double the bass. And then C, E, and G. Again, we're going to double the bass so that we have 4 parts now. So first thing you do, if you remember, is you put in the bass line. So I'm going to knock off one of these notes on each chord. So here's my G, and here's my C. Now if I want to make it a perfect authentic cadence, my leading tone has to be in the soprano. So right here, this B has to resolve to C. It's B because in the key of C, if we write this out real quick, this is your 7th scale degree. If you count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, B is the leading tone. So I'm going to put my B up here, and I'm going to resolve it up to C. So now I have my leading tone in the soprano. Whatever I put in the inner voices doesn't really matter as long as it's a 5 chord and a 1 chord, because this will create the perfect authentic cadence. So the next thing we're going to do is resolve any common tones. So I've got 2 G's. I could put it down here, but I'm just going to put it up here because of my own personal preference. I'd rather have more spacing and not duplicate the G in the 5 chord. Last thing you do is you put in your remaining voices. So your D just resolves up to E. So that's all there is to it. This is now a perfect authentic cadence. It would have to come at the end of a phrase for it to be a cadence. Otherwise, of course, we call it a resolution. Imperfect authentic cadence, I can copy this entire thing over, and I'm going to do that for a very particular reason. I want to show you what changes. So we're going to put the common tone in the same voice, and I'm going to go ahead and put my leading tone down here. So I'm putting my leading tone down here because I want this to be imperfect. I don't want to have scale degree 1 in the soprano. Now in the classical period, the most common resolution for the soprano would be the 3rd in the soprano. In the romantic period, you might get the 5th. But the 5th is a little bit more uncommon because it's considered a little less stable. So all we have to do now is figure out what voices I forgot. Put my D going to E. Now I have an imperfect authentic cadence. So there's one other thing I want to show you. We're going to turn this C major into C minor. So that means your 1 chords become minor. If we go to our scale here, we need to change some of our scale degrees. So we've got our B flat, E flat, and A flat. And if you don't know the order of sharps and flats, it's very important you learn that. It's F, C, G, D, A, E, and B. That's the order of sharps. Sharps go this way. If you want to learn the order of flats, it's the other way around. B, E, A, D, G, C, F. So that is the order that we put them in the key signature. So really, if you learn one of these, either the sharp side or the flat side, you have both of them. You just have to invert it. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to put in our key signature. So I follow the order of flats. So make sure you do that. So you've got B, E, A. Now I'm going to do that over here too, although I didn't really leave myself enough room. I don't want to cram it in, so I'm just going to move this over a little bit. There we go. All right, so now I just turned this into minor. Everything works except for one thing. The leading tone is no longer the leading tone. The lowered 7th scale degree, where you have a whole step between the 7th scale degree and the tonic, is actually known as a subtonic. So this is not the leading tone, it's a subtonic. The leading tone is when it's raised. So here, this is your leading tone. So we have to make the leading tone natural, and this is a common mistake that students make. So all we have to do to make this work in minor is raise the 7th scale degree. Now it works. So the important thing to remember is whether you're in major or minor, we want the 5 chord to be major. And that really goes back to this concept of the overtone series. With the overtone series, if you were to play the fundamental on the piano, the C down here, and then you hold down maybe a C, E, and G an octave higher, very silently on the piano, but you don't actually play the keys and you hit this again, you're going to hear those notes resonate. So listen for that resonation. That resonating is really powerful with a major chord. You can hear that major chord. If I hold down a minor chord, all you hear is the root and the fifth. So that minor third, it doesn't come out as clearly. So major was seen as sort of a more powerful, more resonant chord than the minor chord. That's why so many pieces in the classical period are major. Even if they're written in minor, they often have several major movements. So that's just something to keep in mind. You want to make sure you raise your leading tone.